here? Not yet. Okay, we'll just skip that item until it comes. And if we can fit it in there.
We can put it on the next month's agenda too.
He didn't say he wasn't coming.
He didn't say one way or the other. We just notified him.
I emailed him.
You emailed him.
He didn't hear back. I just saw that he read it. I didn't get a email
Okay.
back.
All right, well, for now, we'll forgo. If he shows up in a few minutes, maybe we'll be able to still do it.
Oh, thanks.
Are any of you guys
There's
Jordan
some more
O'Toole?
seats.
Yeah.
No, okay, all right. There's some seats back over here.
If you go around,
Oh, man.
you gotta go out that door and around.
Okay, item number 3 is the discussion and possible decision on transmission line pole configuration. Our facilities committee has been working diligently and has some recommendations for us.
Yeah, the facilities committee met. We went over the rest of the transmission project. I'll recap what we went over in the meeting prior to last week. So, to recap, last time we talked, so this is up at the Highway 32, the Highway 32, or Highway 40, Highway 32 interchange area up here. So we tap into Rocky Mountain Power's line right up here at the Jordanelle Access Road. So what was decided by the facilities committee was to do single circuit 138 construction with distribution underbuild through this small stretch and get rid of some distribution that's along that interchange there. And then from this section down to the College Access Road, do single circuit 138 construction, spacing the poles as far apart as possible through this section, and using wood wherever it was feasible to use wood through this section. Coming down to here from the Midway substation down through Midway proper to Highway 113, remove all distribution underbuild as per the Mayor of Midway's request on the facilities committee. So this would just be the dual circuit 138 built through here with no distribution underbuild, and when that distribution underbuild gets removed, also remove the comm lines of CenturyLink or Comcast, whoever happens to be on these structures. Then through this section, through kind of the river bottoms here, do typical construction, allowing for the build of underbuild distribution, and continue that over to Southfield Road. And then through this Southfield Road area, depending on what happens with the substation, we would remove the distribution underbuild through this section too. Up through here is where it was more contested, from Highway 40 over through the fields. So we hit Midway Lane was the most contested portion of the line. It wasn't a unanimous vote by the facilities committee on what to do through here, but it was a 2-to-1 vote to go ahead and go wood construction, spacing, taking all distribution underbuild off, so no distribution on the line, and spanning these wood poles as far apart as possible, all the way through. There'd be a steel corner pole, and then wood poles spanned as far as feasible, down to Midway Lane. Once we crossed over Midway Lane, there's a distribution line running on Southfield Road, so we would then pick up distribution back on the line and get rid of that distribution overhead line and put it on these structures. And unless I missed anything by the committee, that's the committee's recommendation
They
for the board.
hopefully continue that all the way down Southfield to 650.
Yeah, we're able to relocate the substation, and we would continue all the way down Southfield, and then, you know, all of this would just be built out as just single-phase 46 kV structures, typical of what they are today.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And
Just doesn't go right past my house.
and then we'd pick up the line and head this way, just kind of following Southfield all the way down and get rid of this U right here if we're able to relocate the substation. So,
And not go right past that whole neighborhood. Pretty much on 650. So instead of going there, you're saying there's talk of moving the substation and just going straight down Southfield and then cutting over?
I don't know if this is a public hearing or not.
Yeah, it's not a hearing, let's just clarify though. Yes, that is correct, you heard correctly.
I said it was public
We're
hearing.
working on some options of moving the substation, so like he said, then the line would go straight down instead
So
of around.
with that moving down 650, then that'd just be kind of what's there already.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah, that's correct, you heard that right. Okay, so, that was a report from the facilities committee.
Yeah, that would be, that's what we discussed. It's a quick overview. They did look at, every section of the line, removed what seemed feasible to them through the process. And, it's stripped down to the bare bones of, basically exactly what we need. There is some areas where we're putting distribution on, but we're also getting rid of, a distribution line that's in that same area. So that would be the facility committee's recommendation, as staff heard it.
How far south is this bottom blue line where you're going across there? Midway Station's the cemetery, basically, right? Okay. You're coming south here.
Would be Ward's Lane in Midway, so like 970 south. It's following we have a 46 kV line throughout this right here, right now. So this is all a current 46 kV line.
That's the line that's there now.
Yep. Yeah, coming from right here, this is all current 46 kV line all the way through here. So, and that line is in bad need of being rebuilt. So,
Is that Streeter Lane? That's the name of the road there that's going down?
Streeter Lane.
Yes.
Street lane, it's
I think the little jog is Stringtown,
This
and
is
then,
string down.
and then it goes back east on 970 south.
On what?
970.
970?
It's kind of a dirt road right now.
It's private property.
So, if I may, we did look at this a section at a time, trying to mitigate as much as possible what the visual impacts would be. I think that that's critically important. Where there has been a transmission line, by getting rid of distribution and communication cables, it was my belief, and I feel strongly that getting rid of at least that much mitigates a lot of the visual impact, makes it so the poles can be further apart, makes it not too different from what we've got except for the corners, as I understand it correctly. Jason, is that correct? I still rigorously oppose putting new lines through the fields. We don't currently have lines there, and putting them above ground in a place where there have never been is, I think, the difficult decision we are faced with as a board now. Because there have never been poles there, we as a community need to decide what kind of growth is acceptable. And we have to have power. I think we all agree, and we all understand the need for additional power. We understand the need for bigger lines. And we're all understanding that we're exploring ways of making that feasible in our community without dramatically, in my opinion, it's our choice at this time in history to decide if we're going to dramatically alter some of the landscape that we currently have. I find it intriguing that we're one of the few, from what I can tell, one of the few existing interlocally owned utility companies. We are owned by 3 cities, and Jason provided me with an interesting history this morning of how Heber Light Power came to be. And I only had a chance to take a cursory look at it this afternoon, but they had multiple opportunities to sell that to Utah Power and Light. And while it didn't go into a lot of detail about why those votes never were successful, you're left to surmise that there's a good chance that the local community wanted local control. And I think that that's where we sit today. As a board, we have the opportunity to look at what will impact our community now and in years to come. And while it is a big decision, and it is something that would require some additional financing, in my opinion, it will, if we continue to allow these kinds of things through our unique county, we change dramatically who we are and how we look. And I realize I'm one voice here, but I feel strongly that we need to really consider what that means and how we move forward with those kinds of decisions. Historically, these kinds of decisions have been contentious all the way along. Again, I didn't have the time to read that history thoroughly, but I found it interesting that from 1904 forward, there have been many contentious, difficult decisions that boards had to make, and this is no exception. But that's my opinion, and I would like it.
And I also struggle with that area because originally the previous board, it was going to follow the lines through Heber City, and in an attempt to protect Heber City, they said, well, let's go outside and around here, following the bypass route, which was anticipated and land has been purchased. Well, in the very recent weeks, we've discovered that it's very unlikely that the Army Corps of Engineers will approve a bypass route through that same corridor that we've anticipated putting these power lines on. And at that point, I found it highly disturbing to think that we were going to put a power corridor as well as a bypass corridor through the North Fields. But again, I think there's not like a right and wrong here. Like, different people value different things. And some people are saying to me, well, you know, as long as you put it out there, it won't matter, just don't get it in the city. And then other people are saying, we just voted to protect open space. We've got to keep this view corridor. This is the most important thing. So I see a lot of different opinions coming. I do agree with Mayor Johnson that, you know, once we put this in, this is it. Like, we have to think long and hard. I personally would like to do some kind of a public opinion poll. I know that most of those aren't scientific, so it would cost money to get one that was a sample, because it really is just a matter of what does the majority of this community want. And we all know what we think the community wants from who we hear from, but I'm not sure if that's really, you know, I'm not sure if that's what the majority wants. And I don't know how else you make these decisions in a democracy except try to figure out what most people want. And it's a tough call. I mean, I have a hard time with that as well. I have a hard time with the whole thing, but particularly in an area where it really kind of is, it's an icon, it identifies who we are, people want to put money into preserving it. It just seems like I don't know, we're splitting the baby here, I don't know. But that's kind of my thoughts. I struggle with that area as well, particularly because there's not going to be a bypass right where we put that.
You know, we looked at this a lot, and I will have a meeting tomorrow morning to talk more about that bypass, and I mean, we're hearing that now, but we also know that those supposed wetlands are probably drying up. And to say now that the bypass won't go on that route, we can't say that. I mean, we gotta,
Well, that girl from
biotech say, yeah, because the wetlands are there, but those wetlands are identified on a map from several years old. Anyway, I guess, and I've been beat up lately Facebook for this, but we're not a democracy, we're a republic. And we can't, every decision, we're elected to represent the public and to listen, and we've listened, we've heard, we've spent our time, we've done our due diligence, and you can't go out to get a public opinion poll on everything. That's what the majority, if you read Facebook and that. So let's do a poll, let's find out what the public wants. So that's what we were tasked to do when we were elected, to do our due diligence. Yes, we have public hearings, we hear from the public, and those are great, and we welcome those. Then it's our decision to make. The impact, I think, I mean, you've already got development, he's already got development asking to go into that area. I think Heber can grow right out to where that power line is. Maybe beyond, we'll see. I mean, if they honor the commitment to stay east of the bypass, then no, but let's see, there's already people talking, so. I just don't see it as impacting that. It keeps it out of the way of the potential bypass, or wherever it goes in that square, and we can move forward. I guess on a public opinion, I don't know that we have time. It's getting a critical junction that this decision has got to be made, and the company's got to move forward. And the excessive cost of doing something different there, the people I represent don't want that.
Any other thoughts from the board?
Seeing none, I'd make the motion that we take the recommendation, as a board, we take the recommendation of the Physical Facilities Committee and authorize the company, Heber Light Power, to move forward with getting permitting and so forth on this segment of the line as it's been explained.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I would second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Motion passes 4-2. Okay, we cannot have our public hearing until 6 o'clock.